Frank.
Dynamite.
Frank, come on, man. Can I Be Frank is all about capturing real, authentic, unedited conversation.
I haven't noticed.
Totally, just you just laugh away there. There's a bit of peaking. It's more peaking from me, actually.
Don't start me off.
Don't get me started. I'm gonna just leave that like that there. It looks fine. And get the bit of the scone. Have you got your scone? Did you finish it?
It's over there.
Do you want me to get it?
Well, if you're keen for me to eat the scone on camera, I will.
Well, I don't think
I'll do the eating. I'll do the porn shot.
Well, I'd hate for you to
be sconeless.
You won't eat sconeless. You'd be
here today.
Not bad now, though. In fairness, I loaded on the jam now.
Yeah, you did a bit.
Yeah,
Frank.
it's a bit gluttonous.
You'll pay in the afterlife.
Oh, I will. For a lot of things.
You might pay sooner than you think, actually.
With the amount of butter as well. You're really now making me feel guilty there.
I'd call the cardiac unit now if I were you.
Yeah. What is it about the idea of scones? You get the impression that maybe they're grand, they're not unhealthy, even though like they are a big lump of cake. Like,
because your granny made them.
is that it?
You think she wouldn't do anything to hurt me? She was a nice old lady. And she's lolloping in the butter and the sugar.
You could be right. It could be that. Like, my mother has 3 scones in the morning, and that's her treat.
Every day.
Well, not every day, but I mean, she's really healthy, ridiculously healthy. But when it comes to the scones, somehow she's cornered and worked out in her brain that no, I can eat as many of those as I like. My cholesterol and everything will be totally fine.
But at the same time, I'm probably right in saying that she doesn't drink pints and shoot shots.
No, she doesn't do anything like that. No. So it's the whole lot, isn't it?
That could be the key.
Yeah.
Got to look at the entire picture here. Where do these particular scones come from?
My local bakery.
What's their provenance?
Simply Delicious is the name of the shop in over by the schools. So they're normally freshly baked every morning. I don't have them every morning now.
No. You don't have to justify it.
I had one yesterday with Emma, and I gave Emma the scone, and I had the pan of chocolate, which is way healthier.
I don't know. I wouldn't know what that tastes like because the only time I've come across it was on holidays, but the Germans always got there first.
To get the fresh ones?
Snaffled all the pan of chocolate.
You've tasted pan of chocolate though?
Oh yeah, no, I have had it, but generally you need to be up early in the morning.
You do when it comes to the Germans, all right. So here we are now. It's recording, obviously. I have it set up. So what was I going to say to you? I had a kind of an opening question for you to hit you with, and after that, obviously I'll refer to all my notes and background, but
I didn't know it was going to be hit. This wasn't part of the agreement.
To bat through you with the question. That's true, it wasn't. No, it was a chat. Yeah, well, we could talk about the scones all day. We're in no rush. I get the impression you've had you wouldn't have the scone normally, though. You're too healthy.
No, God, no. Porridge. Porridge. Sometimes yogurt and fruit.
Yeah.
Lots of seeds. Occasionally, very partial to the poached egg of a morning.
Yeah.
At the weekends with a bit of smoked salmon.
Lovely.
Some diced spring onion.
Nice.
And some cherry tomatoes.
But you weren't always so healthy, like, surely. Like, when did this kick in, or were you? You're 41 now.
Yeah, I wish. 57.
You're not 57.
I'd be 57 January.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'll be 57. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, 57.
So either you look really good, or what my view, because I'm
liar.
getting older, my view of what older people are has just totally changed. But you look good for your age, like.
Grey hair.
Yeah. But you've never thought of dyeing it, obviously. That's
No.
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 Do you know, I think I'd dye it if I had it.
Yeah.
I think I'd consider it anyway.
No, it doesn't look good. It looks like chroma key, you know, when it went in the old days, when video technology was in its infancy, you'd try and drop an image in, like a bad Photoshop, and you'd always get that outline. It was a total giveaway. Dyed hair is the same, it's just too black.
I suppose there is a bit of that, yeah. You can't to get the balance right of it, unless you just continuously, the moment it started going grey, that you just dye it then, so then people just would say, "Oh wow, he's just had black hair forever." Maybe,
or you could just leave a little bit of grey.
a little bit of grey.
It's clever.
Yeah, the George Clooney is he's more than a little bit of grey.
Yeah, but George Clooney it's impossible to make him look ugly. So I mean,
Yeah, he's not getting any younger though. I mean, I'm sure he's. But what was I going to say? But you weren't always so like you were healthy, like.
no, I did. No, you're right, Frank. As a young man in my teens and 20s, I would wolf down a giant pizza with pepperoni, and anything else could pile on, bar pineapple, which of course, as we know, is same goes for sweet corn.
Yeah.
It's pig feed.
Yeah.
It should never ever appear on a pizza. And neither, in my opinion, should pineapple or any kind of fruit for that matter.
Yeah.
But I would snaffle that stuff, and kebabs. I remember being in Abracadabra when it first opened, the first Abracadabra, because it had a video jukebox, which was just the coolest thing in the world in the 70s.
Right.
And it was a remarkably cool place to hang out. It's hard to
Abracadabra.
imagine. I know. Yeah.
And you lived in Dublin, like, I mean,
Yeah.
if it was me from Portlaoise, that would have been the type of thing I might have said, or the local shopping centre was the place to hang out.
This was the first Abracadabra in Ireland, and they opened it in Rathmines. And at the time I had a flat in Rathmines, which was like a sitcom, really.
Yeah.
It was like The Young Ones. It was incredibly dishevelled, and nothing really worked, and I don't think we'd running water in the bathroom sink, and we had to boil a kettle to have a shave.
Yeah, I'd say not much has changed for students now, though. I'd say they're still staying in dives. Are they like
Well,
that?
I hope so. I mean, I wouldn't like to think that it's a bit easier for them than it was for me. But we did have the cooker in the wardrobe.
A cooker in the wardrobe.
Well, it's kind of that was the standard thing in the sort of bedsit type arrangement. Although ours wasn't a bedsit, because we did have a second room with a bedroom.
Yeah.
To share for two.
Okay.
My flatmate would awaken at about 8 o'clock, cough loudly,
Yeah.
and light his first major of the day. So I suppose you could argue I wasn't terribly healthy then, just through inhaling his smoke.
Well, you were smoking though, were you back then?
No, not really. I think I used to have the occasional one at a party. I'd have a silk cut or
So you've always been an occasion. You still would have the cute one, like late at night.
yeah, occasionally,
Yeah.
yeah. But I always feel guilty about it, if that's any help.
I think guilt is one of the greatest things
Overrated.
ever in the world. No, it's great. It's a beautiful Irish trait. Guilt. Fucking.
Yeah, we're probably the world masters of guilt, all right.
Guilt, yeah. I think we definitely invented the idea of sex being dirty.
Filthy dirty.
Filthy dirty. Isn't it amazing? Like we grew up. Well, I definitely grew up with that, so you must have. Like,
Well, absolutely. I mean, there were dirty books.
dirty books.
If only you could get your hands
Dirty
on them.
pictures. Dirty movies.
Yeah,
Only-
everything was dirty. The trick was to go to London to get your dirty books, and there was a kind of a silent trade in swapsies for your dirty books.
Was there really?
Yes.
How did that work?
Well, what you would do is, upon visiting another teenager's house, you would conceal.
There must have had to been certain rules around the exchange, like
Well,
in
you
terms of
conceal
undamaged
the-
goods.
You would wrap the dirty book around your lower leg and stick it into your sock. In those days, trousers were a bit more generous than they are now.
Yeah.
There was ample room for the ladies to facilitate them in your socks. Even though some of them were very big ladies, it has to be said.
Right.
And then it would be smuggled into a buddy's bedroom and swapped for another dirty book.
God almighty.
Yeah, because...
See, we're organised. I mean, there was no...
Oh,
where
yeah.
I was growing up now, there was hardly even admitting to the fact. It wasn't until maybe a little bit older that you'd even admit to the fact that you would look at such filth and be interested in it.
Yeah, it was unbelievably dirty.
Oh, I remember thinking about that one day, going, how are you supposed to be right, like, as a human, if you've about sex, if you've grown up with the ingrained idea of that you're a dirty article for looking at those dirty things.
Well, there's probably a reason for that. That I mean, I agree that the Irish are particularly, I think we've changed a lot, but I think we always were particularly guilt-ridden when it came to sexual topics.
Yeah.
But I think sex, when you look at primitive people and cultures around the world, is surrounded by taboo.
Yeah.
And it is a subject of taboo.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And there must be a reason for that.
It's religion, though, isn't it?
I don't know. I think it's probably such and I suppose the same is true of food. That food occupies the same kind of position in religion, because you have the idea of breaking the bread and the wine and all of that. And I think again in primitive people's food and feasting and all of that is very important. So I suppose kind of the basic needs gets assumed into religion. I've always believed that religion occurs because we need rules.
Yeah.
That societies need absolutes. Otherwise, we just spend the entire day arguing about who's right and who's wrong. But if God says so, well then...
that takes any ambiguity out of it. But they definitely had an impact in terms of what I've read is that at one stage priests were able to get married, and then because of the risk of money leaving the church and going to the family and the kids, the church deemed it that priests weren't able to get married. So it was a monetary motivation. And so then to be able to kind of encourage this whole celibate sort of lark, that it was deemed as, dirty and impure at a certain age and all this sort of stuff. And then you have an idea that the Virgin Mary is pure and it's good to be a virgin, and so to not be that you're impure, therefore to have sex is dirty.
But I mean, preceding that, we had the vestal virgins in ancient Rome.
Go on, what were they now?
And they were kind of handmaidens of the temple, I think.
Right.
I don't know too much about Roman religion, but they had a series of gods, and vestal virgins were required to carry out certain ceremonies. So
Right.
it's not peculiar to Catholicism.
No. But that demented sort of view, how did it's like the idea, though, anything that maybe it is like food, anything that we desire or want too much of or whatever, somehow it can be screwed up by wanting too much of anything, ends up fucking you up a little bit, but that idea, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, food and the gluttonous and all that. And
land. Which religion is particularly, the church are particularly good on land.
Land?
Land, holding on to land. They have large swathes of land always, If you remember, I remember growing up in Dublin, and you'd roaming free around the bits of the city that hadn't been developed, and you'd always come across a huge convent with masses of land.
Yeah.
And then you'd rarely see any nuns, because there were only a handful of the poor ladies in there. But they were sitting on this valuable swathe of land.
It's like we went around
topic in Ireland.
We went around the Vatican, though, and it is that you kind of get this feeling of, here, lads, is enough not enough? Like, when is enough? Every room, singular room, is packed with these treasures of ancient and epic proportion, and you kind of they all almost look the same, because there's so much. How to even distinguish one that is a masterpiece? Maybe you can have one explained to you, but to me, I was looking at all, and they all blended into being all the same. But maybe it was amazing, and maybe I forgot the history and whatever. But it was more so. It was like they were hoarding, and so they're hoarding land.
I think so. Yeah. And land is power, especially in Ireland.
It is, yeah.
And it's a finite resource.
Sure, on Fifth Avenue, haven't they got one of the most expensive pieces of real estate with that church on?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what Jesus.
Between
to be honest,
skyscrapers.
that's what Jesus would want, wouldn't he? I mean, really and truly, if he was to come back and there wasn't loads of land, I can't imagine the son of a carpenter wouldn't be impressed, like, without loads of gear and...
Father, Son and Holy Developer.
Holy Developer. Mother of God. Yeah. Anyway, where did we go with that one? We were... Food. Healthiness.
Food and dirty books.
And dirty books.
Yeah, and the church. Trying to make us feel guilty about them. But I'm saying that it's not just the Catholic Church.
It's all of them.
That prizes virginity.
Yeah. They all do they?
Well, I don't know.
I know in one of the religions that if you do a bit of bombing, you'll get loads of virgins when you die.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, see,
but I don't know which one that is. That
like
could be the Protestants or something, you know.
Is that not a bit like the checks in the post?
It's a bit... You're taking a bit of a leap of faith, like, you know.
Talk about the price after the job's finished.
Yeah, do you think there's...
Classic one in advertising.
The bit of negotiation before, and look, can I just see some of the evidence that of this, maybe just one of the virgins? Or do I... Or at least... Okay, look, can I just get a testimonial from somebody who's experienced those 10 virgins? Do you know what I mean? And then I'll definitely do the bombing. But that's
the email address of one of the virgins.
Yeah, I just drop them. I won't harass them. I won't send them too many messages.
I might just friend them on Facebook.
Yeah, do you mind? Like, just a little bit of proof. If that just doesn't seem to be... Yeah, enter into the discussions, does it really? You know.
What we were saying was that all the primal things, like food and land and sex...
Yeah.
That are the things that are important to us as human animals.
Yeah.
Inevitably get to be the focus of religion because religion needs to manipulate us.
Okay.
And sometimes you could argue for our own good. In that, you know, people do seem to need rules, but it seems to go badly wrong because of the attraction of power.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it said that the church in Ireland, you know, the church of, I suppose, early Christians, worked quite well because it was fairly organic and it just adapted to the pagan rituals and rites that were here already, and to the society that it was invading, if you like, or inveigling its way into. But where it really got tricky was when it became centralised, you know, like a big multinational corporation.
Yeah.
In Rome, and then, you know, that church was inevitably a political organisation, even though it perhaps didn't want to be.
Yeah.
It had to become. The definition of politics is, you know, the science of power. So once you have that much power, you become a political entity.
That's kind of interesting, though. Never ever thought about it. That's kind of like this idea of globalisation versus localisation. So you're saying at one stage there probably was a local strategy for the churches.
I think so.
And they were adaptable and flexible to the needs of the people, and then it became the central message, central product, central packaging. And sorry guys, we're going to have to stick to this one line of thinking. Yeah,
that's right. And we just homogenise everything. And apparently the church in Ireland adapted to the pagan festivals that were here already.
Yeah.
And just took a few of those on and said, right, we'll go with that. We can handle that. Yeah.
Because that is the truth is as well then that, you know, for all these festivals, say like Christmas Day, it is a pagan festival originally. Am I right?
I think
remember
so. I think that may be a coincidence rather than by design.
Well, in fairness, it's a bit of a big coincidence, isn't it? One is the festival of the sun or the whatever.
The solstice is what, the 21st, is it?
Yeah.
Of December, so, you know, it's not far off.
And the sun of God. I mean, it's okay. That's a wordplay too. But I mean, I can see. Well, do you know what? There's two of them.
I don't know.
They're too close together. It's like having your birthday and Christmas together.
I don't know if we can put organised religion down to puns.
Well, I'm sure somebody somewhere kind of said, well, do you know what? That rhymes with... I don't know. But yeah, this, you know, the idea of, say there's Christmas Day and the solstice, did somebody just go, do you know what now? Because that's 2 days off work too close together, and obviously we've St. Stephen's Day, we should get rid of one of them, join them together. You'd love to know, but I mean, yeah.
Well, you know, the other thing that people, I think, don't recognise is that somebody edited the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, that the scrolls that went to form the Bible the Bible is not representative of what was found in
it's
a
not.
cave. And somebody kind of went, I don't know about that. That bit there.
Yeah.
It's tedious.
Well,
Are the readers really going to like this?
Well, in actual truth, as far as I know, there's hundreds of Bibles. Bible means short story, or that's in essence what it means, and I think it does anyway. And I have one which is the Gnostic Bibles, and so Thomas wrote a Bible, Mary Magdalene wrote a Bible. I mean, even back then, there's no point there. I was trying to make a joke
again.
Yeah, but just seeing that's at lower power mode already. I might have to plug in my phone. So there was hundreds of Bibles, and they reduced them down to 4. And the Gnostics were certain Bibles, of which Thomas was one of them. And Thomas is obviously known as Doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, what a way to stop somebody doubting by making it a bad thing to doubt.
Was it Donald Trump gave him that name?
Fake news.
Fake news.
Yeah, he's just spreading fake news about me. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because all you have to do is say that. He's just a doubting Thomas. But so anyway, that's and they whittled them down obviously to 4 stories that told the story that they wanted to tell. But it doesn't even fit with their whole corporate strategy, really, does it? The Bibles.
But if it is the word of the chief executive,
God itself,
surely the shareholders should get to see it in its entirety.
Yeah, you would have thought. I found that fascinating, and actually I have read Thomas's Bible.
Have you?
I have, yeah. And it
Any
is
good?
Well, actually, it's more phrases and sentences, and it is actually quite mystical. It's it kind of ties into the kind of pure form of maybe what he heard back then. It's more. It's like I am the rock. It's this kind of line that I think of as something like I am the rock and the rock is me, and it's like this idea of no separation. I won't go into it too much, but it is quite. The phrases in it are quite pure and simple. They're not dogmatic. They're not kind of like that you use something or. And now you have all these spiritual teachers like the likes of Eckhart Tolle who would quote Saint Thomas, and so it is. As much as anything, it's fact. These Bibles of which St. Thomas, and I always kind of liked Thomas because he got a bad rap the way I thought about him. The poor lad, he asked a few questions. Just give me a little bit of proof. That's all I'm asking, and he gets all this abuse.
About these Vestal virgins, right?
Yeah. Can I just even have a picture, just one of them, just because I mightn't like them.
They mightn't like me.
They might. Well, I mean, they're guaranteed. So
you're a saint. I mean,
you're a saint.
That's got to be worth something.
Yeah.
Where did you get hold of his Bible? I'm fascinated by that.
It's you can buy it online, and you can actually, you don't even have to go and buy it online. You type in the Gnostic Bible of St. Thomas, and you will get somebody somewhere else. And equally of Mary Magdalene. Now I can't remember what I would have remembered a few years back as to what she said, but again, hers was kind of. There was a sort of a less constricted. They're just sent as like notes, which you imagine that is really how you would write, as opposed to writing a start, middle, and an end, and in the beginning sort of language. But that's the beginning of the Bible.
Yeah. We don't know who wrote that, do we? In the beginning there was light and all that stuff is good stuff. Yeah,
you don't. That came from the Old Testament, and the Old Testament was there obviously before Jesus, and the Old Testament is similar to the Jewish Bible.
Yeah.
So they kind of there's
a lot of smiting going on.
What's smiting?
Smiting.
What's smiting?
Smiting the Philistines, beating them.
Oh, beating them.
They were smitten. They're beaten down.
You could see something like that.
It's quite a potboiler. The Old Testament. There's a lot of smiting.
Yeah, well,
and begetting.
Baguetting or
begetting?
What is beget? There's a punning now. This is a pun. This is a pun festival here.
Begetting is giving birth to.
I have to flick this thing on and off.
Solomon beget such and such, and David and David beget somebody else, and they were always begetting people.
Oh, that's like The Simpsons. There's an episode, and Solomon begat somebody, and does that give birth to? Yeah, give birth to. So yeah, okay. What were we saying there? Just on the
we're wondering who was responsible for writing the Old Testament, because Because he seems to have a good
Well,
touch. Much
he
more
seemed
sense of
to.
drama.
I mean, he summed it up quite nicely. In the beginning there was light, but obviously, like somebody just decided, you know what? I'll summarise the whole of creation in a couple of lines here. Just
I'm gonna make this easy.
there's an unbelievable Ricky Gervais sketch about the Bible, and he goes, in the beginning there was light, and it was good, and then Ricky Gervais goes, a little bit arrogant, calling it good, but well, that's fine. Let's move on from that.
The first ever review.
Yeah, review yourself. I suppose there's nobody else around.
Good's not bad. Great would have been better.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's
Fabulous,
amazing.
darling.
Look what I've just done. I've just made light. Wish there was somebody here. I got an idea.
Yeah, nobody to see it.
Give Adam and Eve a go. I mean, it does kind of make sense, Oh, Jesus. Do you know what's a good segue? Although I could talk about that. I must give you a copy of the Gnostics thing, or I'll point you towards it.
Yeah. I'm just impressed that you bothered. I think that shows an inquiring mind. I've never heard of anybody looking it up or seeking it out, shall we say.
Well, I suppose when I heard that there was another Bible, there wasn't just four, my brain instantly goes, oh, okay, so how come that didn't make the cut, like? Or is that true, or what happened there?
We need more like you, Frank. It's the rest of us are just sheep who go, well, okay, we'll just take what we're given, and you've edited it, that's fine by me.
Well, you see, I don't think it's heard, though. I don't think people actually hear, oh, okay, sorry, there was more than four Bibles. There was more than four Bibles. And they go, oh, right, well, I thought there was only Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John who could have been asked to write shit down. And then I kind of just wanted to see if there's some answer to what's going on to this.
The Church's spin doctor, whoever he is, has done an excellent job in hiding the fact that there were other Bibles, because it's not widely known as far as I know.
Yeah, I think
just you and I know about
this. Well, it's not in popular conversation. I think it should be in popular conversation, especially if you're going to Mass on a Sunday. But then you see, I suppose you're not reading.
Put your hand up and say, excuse me.
Can any chance we could have a reading from St. Thomas? He sounds lovely. And I can relate to him. I don't speak out of turn, but I can just relate to him a tiny bit.
It's not going to go down well, is it?
No, it's not going to go down well. And then the Mary Magdalene one, obviously.
Yeah.
The Mary Magdalene one,
Wow.
She's obviously the worst and the worst for having sex with them and all the other lads in the village.
Woman, which was,
You see, and I mean, what Mary Magdalene should have done is, no, it doesn't work. I was going to say she should have just played the whole virgin card and denied it, like Mary did, but that's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
Possibly,
yes. But anyway, yeah. What I might do is get that charger over there actually, just to be safe, to be sure. If I have this, stretch. That's the big question.
Is there another? Oh, I see you have the Batman comic books here.
The Batman comic books, yeah.
I should have read that one.
A fair few.
Killing Joke, I think I looked at that too.
Let me see, just does this bad boy stretch? It may not stretch. This is what I get from that charger. My battery doesn't last near as long.
Oh, careful. Yeah,
okay. No, it's not going to work. I have this one anyway, so
it's running behind you there. That
I'll just stop the pricking.
Right.
I won't
That's
bother.
it,
If it dies, it dies. We have the other phone. Sorry about that. Sorry for that broadcast interruption there now.
No problem.
But anyway, I think we've solved everything really in terms of the Bible, have we?
I'd say pretty much.
Yeah. You're obviously not religious?
No, not really. I think I was when I was a kid, but again, that's because you feel obliged to be. And I would have had kind of Bible studies push my way.
Yeah.
Being from the Protestant tradition.
All right.
Study of the Bible was,
I didn't realise you were Protestant.
Yeah, that's why I'm so good at making jam. Picking berries.
Are you good at making jam?
Well, I could turn my can't. Most things.
Okay. Is that a thing? That's a thing. Is it about
Oh
Protestants?
God, yeah,
Is
yeah,
it?
yeah. Pickle and I mean, you know, yeah, smelling vaguely of mothballs and dogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, having a fondness for wild berries and knowing where to pick them. I can remember in our garden at home we had a large area of raspberries.
Yeah.
My responsibility to go and pick the raspberries.
Not
which
the
my
worst
mother-
job. We
my
had
mother would
gooseberries
tell you
in
to
our
try.
house, Catholic household. Go on here.
Yeah, the neighbours had gooseberries, and we could try to do swapsies, you know, to
Okay.
make more interesting jams. But it was mostly my mother would make blackberry jelly, which was actually very good. I like the blackberry jelly.
Yeah.
Very nice on toast with butter. It was kind of special that. Didn't make it that often. It was mostly buckets of raspberries, so they would be.
The
We
seasonal.
also had peculiarly, only Protestants know about this, loganberries. Have you ever heard of?
I've never heard of loganberries.
See?
Yeah. The prods. You
Oh,
just
yeah.
knew.
That's how we know each other. You just mentioned loganberries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's the
It's
code,
Much
is
more
it?
reliable than a Masonic handshake.
And tell me, when you were growing up, was it a thing being a Protestant? Did you
Yeah.
you aware of it being a difference, or like I'm
Yes,
Protestant
yes.
and most people I know are Catholics?
Yeah. Well, for a start, you generally have a smaller family. Where I grew up in the 60s, Goatstown, all my neighbours had 7 or 8 kids.
Yeah.
One or two might have had, 2 or 3, but mostly the norm was about 6 or 7 children, and they were living in 3-bedroom semi-Ds. So people were remarkably clever about space and how to utilise it.
Yeah.
And there were quite a few people who were in the building trade, so they would augment their home and turn the area under the staircase into a bedroom for 2 of the kids or such like, and there was always attic extensions, and people sleeping all over the place because it was amazing what people would do, because they had to, because they weren't allowed to control their families. So they all had big families, and it was great because there were so many kids. There was you were never short of anyone to make up a football team. Now we would play football for hours in the street. But in the cul-de-sac, because there weren't really, most families had one car, and it was gone. Daddy had gone to work in it that day. So during the summer we'd play football until a neighbour called the guards, who'd turn up on a motorbike. Why do you never see guards on motorbikes anymore?
You do on
notice
the
that?
motorway? No,
Rarely.
not as
You
much.
just see them just cruising around trying to look cool.
Yeah.
I remember there were 2 cops on motorbikes that used to come and take our football or tell us to take our football and bring it home. And I think we nicknamed them Ollie and Pieface. I don't know why.
But did you notice? Did you when you? So the family thing is kind of interesting. I'm curious actually. Like you said, obviously it was the control. They couldn't have the rubber johnnies. But did you know? Was there a thing? Was there a stigma, or there wasn't not a stigma?
Yeah,
but was there a
slightly.
thing?
There was a slight stigma. I mean, you were considered odd, and it was, you would be asked to explain it from time to time, understandably.
Yeah.
But there's really nothing to explain apart from the raspberries and the loganberries.
And tell me this though:
Smelling
is
faintly of
Mary?
mothballs.
You don't believe in the divineness of not. You don't believe in the divineness. So, but that is that the differentiator between Protestants and
I think
Catholic?
transubstantiation is the issue.
Go on. What's that mean?
Which is the belief that I hope I'm right on this, that the host actually becomes the body of Christ, whereas the prods believe that it's just symbolic.
Okay.
It's a very laissez-faire.
The bread is
approach
it?
to
The whole
religion.
the bread.
Yes.
So that's the divide. It's nothing to do
divine,
with Mary.
and a miracle takes place at Mass. You should know this, Frank.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're lucky, one of these days they'll start asking questions.
I'm going to hell though. I mean that's where all the great crack is.
Exactly, down the back of the airplane.
That's where all the drugs
where
are.
everybody's smoking.
All the booze and the
Yeah.
orgies. I definitely.
Yeah.
I mean I definitely go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we can get your ticket. You do realise it'll probably be a Ryanair flight.
Myself and Neil are going to have an open relationship in heaven. Sorry. Anyway, that's what we've agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Apparently, the belief is that the the bread a miracle takes place and the bread becomes the body of Christ. But the Luther and the boys drew the line on this and said, here, we're not having that. It's just symbolic. It's just to remind us that Christ died for us on the cross.
And that's how they...
Simplism.
Wow.
That's the only real difference.
And so Mary is still a virgin
apart
in
from
your
confession,
side.
there was no confession.
So no guilt, yeah.
Well,
Less guilt.
Less guilt, I think.
I think it's nicer. I think, I was at a ceremony recently for my nephew, and I mean, I don't buy into that sort of stuff, but actually it was a lovely sort of, as these things go, it was a lovely gathering, and it was almost community-esque feeling of it. Like people, maybe I just got sucked in by all the cakes and stuff like that, but people brought cakes and goodies to the ceremony afterwards.
When they're not making jam, they're baking.
That's what what you're up to.
Cakes, yeah. My mother was forever coming home from bringing buy sales with chocolate cakes. My grandmother would roll her eyes and say, "You bought another chocolate cake, didn't you?" Yeah. What about a coffee cake for a change?
Coffee cake.
And they would have, the Protestant ladies would have a particular, they'd have a knowledge, they'd know the form of other Protestant ladies who were particularly good in the kitchen.
Oh, really?
So they'd get to the bring and buy sale earlier to get Mrs. Cox's cake, because she made a particularly good sponge, a lovely sponge. So they'd have their eye on, as soon as she took it out of her obligatory square biscuit tin, slightly rusted biscuit tin, and placed it proudly on her stall, they'd swoop like vultures.
Something nice about the home sales, though, isn't there? Like those cake sales, with home cooked, when it's good, home cooked stuff, isn't there? I'd be into that, like.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, what you call
Bring
it?
and buy sale.
The Victorian sponges, Protestant, that would be Protestant, would it? It wouldn't be Catholic, they wouldn't get the credit for that.
I don't know.
No, probably the Mary sponge.
I'm not sure about the religious delineation of
sponges.
Of confectionery, but I do know that the jams and chutneys would be a big thing.
Okay.
Your prods would be after the chutney now. They'd have it stashed away.
Would they?
Oh yeah.
Because it lasts longer, is it?
Yeah, well, I suppose so. They'd make their own chutney with green tomatoes. Yeah. You have to have a greenhouse. Gardening is big with prods.
Is it?
Oh, they're ferocious gardeners. Forever out there pottering around with and dogs. That's why they smell of dogs slightly, and mothballs. Because...
So you're allowed to say all this.
Because, the clothes have been handed down from... Well, I say it slightly tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, of course,
but it's handed down from generation to generation. So that always a vague whiff of mothballs, gin, and chutney. That's how you know a prod.
Jesus, it's funny though. Like I was growing up with the idea that it was obviously Protestants were other, whatever way.
Yes, exactly.
Like in my family, I have a cousin, and she married a Protestant, and I'm pretty sure my grandfather, who was a Republican, he could not get his head around that. Like that was just that wasn't a good thing. Put it like that. And but I think he gave a speech in the day of the wedding, and he said something like, "There's been many good Protestants in our time." Daniel O'Connell, and then the joke was that he had to go back 100 years to find a good Protestant, which is but at the time, but
statistically there aren't as many of them, so the chances of hitting on a decent one are far between. Less than 1% of the population. So so you do feel a little bit like a celebrity growing up, a weird kind of celebrity, so like a mixture of being a demon and a celebrity. When I was a kid, people would occasionally corner me and say, "Do you believe in the Pope?" And I'd go, "Well, I don't think there's any option. He's there. It's not like the Holy Spirit, which kind of requires a bit of a leap of faith. The Pope really does exist, and he is the head of the church. So I can't not believe in him. Yeah, but Jews don't believe in him.
Yeah.
This is when I was quite a young lad. So
but
the depths of theological discussion didn't work.
Well, growing up in Dublin as well, there's a lot more free attitude. Religion didn't have the power, and also I always got the impression that being on that side is less dogmatic. Less on that side, what the fuck? But the whole rearing of it was less dogmatic in how you should live and all that. Or was that true?
Well, I remember the prods don't do First Holy Communion.
Yeah.
they do communion,
Okay.
which is later.
Yeah, non-divine.
So they smugly used to believe that the children were teenagers by then and old enough to understand what they were getting into, and it wasn't simply a chance to dress up like a cake and extort money from your relatives.
Yeah.
But that's just because it suited them to say that.
Yeah.
But I possibly am not a member of the church, because I did actually attend the communion classes you'd have to go to where you're kind of prepared to enter the church. Please.
Yeah.
And I do remember showing up on the day to be confirmed and promptly passing out in the pew because I hadn't had breakfast, and it was early in the morning and I was nervous and fainting. So I failed to actually get my communion.
Did you?
At that. So I
wrong
may
there.
technically not be a member of the Protestant faith, which is fine by me.
Yeah. Isn't it spectacular?
Although it is a cultural thing. I do quite like the fact that it gives you a cultural difference, or a colour, a slightly different shade.
Yeah.
That's really the only value I can think of.
It is, yeah. It is done less harm, apparently. I mean, that's not true if you look back into history, so that's too much of an ignorant statement there, yeah. Yeah, I know in terms of atrocities, but I suppose in terms of impact, is it,
Remember the Huguenots
but like they can get married, for example, and that's what I mean.
You mean the whole child abuse thing?
Yeah, this seems to be less rampant, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would be. I mean,
I'm a bit ignorant on that now. Yeah.
Well, I remember hearing something a couple of months ago about there was that instance in King's Hospital school where there was a kind of the boarders had an initiation ceremony involving a hockey stick going where it ought not to, and there have been instances, I think, of people being, I think there will always be
with power,
yeah, there'll be abuse, but yeah, certainly if people are sexually frustrated, you need to talk to Brian Darcy about all of that. He's very clear views on the priest should be married, and he would like to have been married. Yeah.
That's just common sense. I think you'd take them more seriously. They'd be able to have more empathy with living and life.
Well, I'd go further. I'd say the thing that will really rescue the church, and maybe it'll be a good thing to rescue it, because I don't know what's going to fill that enormous void if it does.
Do you think something needs to fill that enormous void?
Well, I think nature teaches us that something will. That wherever there's a vacuum, nature fills it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what will it be just rampant consumerism instead of.
Do you think the church stops that? I mean,
I don't think. I think what's happened is it has got to the point where the brakes are off and the car is rolling down the hill. So I don't think it can actually stop anything at this stage. I think it has become impotent. But I think the thing that could possibly rescue it is if they ordained women as priests.
Yeah,
and
that's
I think
a good point.
women make excellent priests.
Yeah,
because they're very compassionate compared to men, and in touch with families, and that where the church bizarrely seems to fall down is its understanding of family.
Yeah, I think I'd like the idea to see what it was like if there's absolutely zero impact of it. I mean, I think it's still, although quietly sneaking back in, it reaches to every crevice. Power structures seem to reach to every crevice of society now. I mean, it's still in schools in Ireland. I mean, even I was looking at fucking Fox News the last day, and this female presenter was talking about the recent thing in Texas where somebody went into and shot 26 people.
Appalling, yeah.
And she said, I know it was terrible, but at least it happened in a church. So, I mean, because you're there with Jesus Christ, and, I mean, you're going to end up in eternity or some fucking absolute horse manure. And you're kind of going, now, I know you're bullshitting me now. Don't start talking to me about Jeebus. Don't start giving me that shit. Like, I know you were all just saying it because that's what your audience wants you to say. I mean, but so there's that idea of, what's the idea? That idea of it being used as a stick to beat people, but still, it kind of, it doesn't seem to have a balance of live and let live. Like, come if you want to come, don't come if you don't want to come, and we don't need to impact you in your life. You make your own decisions. it's impact. It's telling you what to do in the end. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
anything that tells people what to do isn't really good.
Well, this is the point I made earlier, that there is an argument to be made that we have religion because we needed it.
Yeah.
Because we needed to organise people and to get them to stop fighting one another and to actually unite under something.
I think it's more.
But what I'm saying is that once it becomes all powerful, that it becomes corrupted. It's back to Animal Farm again, and once it becomes a political organisation, rather than a spiritual movement, then it inevitably starts to rot and fester, and bully people.
Yeah, but I actually think their need for it comes out of this idea that you grow up, the first thing you know is the parent-son-daughter relationship. And that's this comfort factor of being led by a father figure. And either that father figure is stern or soft or easygoing or whatever it is. And then you're out into the world and there is no apparent, without a government in place to keep you safe, or a church that's supposed to keep you safe. That's where this searching for it is, and maybe somebody steps forward and goes, well, I'll be the one. But I think that's where it comes from, this idea that how can I survive without a father figure to mind me and tell me what to do? You absolutely can survive with that. But then maybe some can't and need it. But I think that's where this inherent need for a power structure, somebody to look up to, comes from parenthood.
Yeah, patriarchal society.
Yeah.
The people that interest me in the wide variety of Protestant churches that are out there, and there's some pretty weird ones. There's splinter groups, little sects.
Yeah.
The bigger group,
like Opus Dei on the other side.
But they're just smaller kind of veins of Protestantism, I suppose, as opposed to the major arteries. But one of the bigger churches is the Society of Friends, or the Quakers.
Yeah,
quite interesting in the way that they've organised themselves, because they seem, from the people I've met, to be a bit special, and they don't have a hierarchy as far as I know. They have meetings. They don't go in for high church, so there isn't much in the way of ornamentation. In fact, there's nothing in the way of ornamentation. It's stripped back to a bare room. The idea being to concentrate on the spiritual. And they don't have priests. They have a kind of a communist setup, whereby people arrive in the room, and I think the phrase they use is they wait for the spirit to move them, which is a phrase you're probably familiar with. And I think that's where it came from. I could be wrong in that, but I think it came from the Quakers. And then somebody will say something that they feel moved to say, of a religious nature, and others will then chime in off that.
That's interesting, isn't it? And but what about money?
Apparently they're brilliant business people.
Right.
The Quakers are pretty good in business and renowned for being kind to their employees, I think. I think the people in Ballymaloe may well be Quakers who run Ballymaloe.
There's a Quaker graveyard opposite Butler's Pantry there at the top of Black Rock.
Yeah, I think there's a meeting house there, or used to be as well.
Is there? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been in it, but I'd heard about it. But I just always found that interesting, and kind of heard, and I've met a few Quaker people, and they did seem to be very good and gentle individuals. So maybe this is an example of a religion that works. I don't know.
I think anything that becomes too popular gets fucked up by somebody somewhere wanting to put their oar in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think once it achieves a certain critical mass, it's inevitably, by definition, a political force, and then the game is up. It's over.
Yeah, it's very true, actually. Well, when everything, it's in absolutely everything, every kind of club or anything.
It becomes unknowable. Once you're in an organisation where and you'll have experienced this in work yourself, I'd say, Frank. You get to an organisation where you can't know everybody in it. Yeah. There's just too many, several hundred. You can't remember all the names, and you never, in the time you operate there, actually get to meet everyone. it's kind of slightly worrying.
Yeah. Well, it is, I suppose. Yeah, it's just got too big. It doesn't need to get so big, but that's the...
But then, of course, what happens is we organise into smaller departments. And of course, inevitably, the departments, because we're human beings, mitigate against each other. So you have the accounts department fighting the creative department fighting the media department, and the media department.
We're a complex, really, when you think about everything like that. Everybody kind of... when you think of even the multiplicity of religions and the way we operate, like it's we're complex creators all the same, aren't we? God love us.
I suppose so, but we're simple at the same time. That's where we started. We were talking about religion focusing on the basic needs, like food, like sex, like land, shelter.
Like when I went into this whole phase of looking into it all, like you saw the similarities between all the religions. It's like they all started off with some sort of essence of, we'll say, a truth, some sort of an idea that appealed, whatever that idea was, and those truths are in all of them, maybe apart from Scientology, but but they all had some sort of essence of grains of something. And then I always liken it to...
I'm just checking the ceiling because you said that about Scientology in case Tom Cruise comes clattering in on a wire.
That'd be deadly. She's sick of the views. But
they all have a nugget.
A nugget of something. And then, it's like this idea of a Chinese whisper. Say I discovered or found out something at some sort of... Say I took a big bag of shrooms and I saw that we're all one, like, right? And I told you, I said, Ray, I saw this thing last night and I didn't know that I'd taken shrooms. I just took a big bag of shrooms because I was starving and I was out in the field and a bush started burning, right? For
That's
example,
definitely how that happened, by the way.
Yeah, DMT, actually. I looked into that. That actually there was talk that over there'd be a bit of DMT, and from the heat of the sun that maybe there was some sort of fumes. And but say I had the big bag of shrooms, and
either that or somebody lighting farts again, which never
does that get you?
It's not big and it's not clever.
So, and I saw that we're all one and there's no separation and this is it happening and it's the Big Bang in every moment, or some wild vision of how this existence. And I told you it, and then you went away that night and you were thinking about it, and you said, you wrote down, Jesus, Frank says we're all one. Maybe we are all one. And then you add a tiny little tuppence into it, and then that tuppence over a couple of thousand years, of course. And then you a little bit of creative license, sure, let's just make Mary a virgin, or whatever, because it fits this part of the story and all that. But that's, so in what we're saying, like we were talking about simplicity, it probably started off with something wonderfully simple, that life is unknowable, we'll say, and it can't be written down. And like the Tao Te Ching starts off with the Tao that can be, which is Taoism, but it starts off with the line, the Tao that can be known is not the Tao. So in other words, the life that can be understood is not it. And then it goes on to start talking about it. Like,
they love a contradiction in Eastern mysticism, don't they?
Well, that's it, you see. I don't think there's any fucking truth. I mean, that's the good thing. A priest or a pope or an atheist, everybody thinks they've got it sussed. Maybe an atheist is more based. It's the burden. As Ricky Gervais would say, the burden of proof is not on him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I presume, it'll be interesting when people are actually born atheist, because you can only by definition become atheist by wandering off the true path, as it were, in inverted commas, currently. I mean, nobody really has the opportunity. We're probably just about to face the first generation who will be brought up without religion.
In Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my children would have been brought up in a religious environment in the Catholic Church, because that's what their schooling was.
Yeah.
and I remember seeing the lonely little boy and talking to his mother, who lived across the road, who had made the decision. And she wasn't a particularly strident person. She was a quiet, thoughtful lady. She just quietly said to me that she wasn't going to let him make his Holy Communion, and that he didn't want to anyway.
Wow.
And feeling terribly sorry for him, because it was such a source of excitement for all the kids. There's nothing wrong with that. That they're excited about
getting a few bob, like
they don't really understand,
and being the centre of attention for the day. Yeah,
absolutely. But he wasn't, and they were all having parties, and I felt so sorry for him that he wasn't going to be having a party in his house. And
that's the thing, you risk excluding.
But he was a lovely, lovely lad, and I'd known him since he was really small, and I thought, it's kind of a brave decision, a really brave decision on her part.
Yeah.
And she didn't make it as any kind of strident, crusading stand. She just quietly decided that wasn't going to happen, and she consulted him, and he said, no, I don't really want to do it. But I think it might have been, he might have regretted it afterwards. Being left it just because he was left out
because of the big day. Yeah, and that's what it is. Like, I haven't made it. I mean, all mine are going to do it. I do.
I mean, here's one for you, Frank.
Yeah.
If we're true atheists, why do we celebrate Christmas?
I know, yeah. I know,
I mean, why don't we just opt
stuff
out
in the
and
face.
say to our friends, I'm sorry, I mean, do you know any atheists who don't do Christmas? Okay, maybe they don't go to mass, but they don't say, no, we're not going to put a tree up, we're not going to exchange
they'd probably be different and have a steak or something. Yeah, they'd probably have a steak or something like that. But I mean, it does break the year up, doesn't it?
Well, where in the Bible does it say we have to eat turkey at Christmas?
Yeah, well, I think you see that's taken from another one of those festivals.
It's another one of those bits that were edited out.
Well, no, they just borrowed it from somewhere else.
Saint Nigella's Bible.
Yeah, it probably was. Nigella loved a bit of turkey, but
dirty turkey.
Yeah. Dirty, God, Nigella. Well, she is dirty. Like, I mean, there's no question.
Lovely, wonderful.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah, of course.
Sid James would have been delighted.
But what was I going to say to you now? There on what were we saying there? Turkey and Christmas and.
Why do we not opt out of Christmas if we're atheist?
Yeah.
It doesn't even enter our minds. Because it is now a festival of consumerism, as everybody knows.
Yeah, you see, I don't really have a problem with belief systems and all that. Believe what you want, like, just don't go telling me, how to live my life. But I mean, I don't know, Christmas to me is a great chance to stuff your face. Just like, see, we don't have many ones. Then when he died, didn't we have another one? Easter is another one, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah,
you can stuff your face then too.
Another opportunity. Was I said about food?
Yeah.
And also wine always fascinated me. The fact that in Christian religion, wine is so central to everything. So you've got to get drink in there as well. Food, drink,
it's actively encouraged. Well, like, especially when he turned the water into wine. I mean, that's the way I look at it, is that he encourages. I think that's why the Irish probably just drink so much, because, well, Jesus...
Well, I can remember being at Mass and thinking somehow this was wrong, seeing a priest drinking. I just assumed that they wouldn't, that it was kind of, way too much fun.
Yeah,
that they can't, that religion isn't about fun.
Well, there's a fair few priests now who were kind of loving the old attention they might get now. I'd say they had a fair bit of fun. The ones that would head over to that Lonely Housewives and.
I remember my mother saying to me, "You'd make it might be my grandmother. You'd make a lovely clergyman." I think it was because I was kind of skinny and gaunt and serious looking. I thought that's exactly what you need to be taken seriously on a Sunday.
I can't see that. Yeah,
talking down to people.
Yeah, with your collar, Jesus.
Yeah.
But I try to be conscious of the idea of trying to force my perspective on things with my kids, and so I don't say to them, more than you brought your kids up with the religion just because it was there. I don't tell them what I think and I don't think, but I do say to Faye, which story do you prefer, the one about Jesus or the one about Cinderella?
And she likes Cinderella.
She prefers Cinderella.
Yeah.
They're both stories.
They are, yeah.
One just is
one has animals in, which is always good with little girls.
Yeah.
Cuddly sheep and donkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she really doesn't know the Jesus one properly yet, which is great.
How old is she now?
6.
Mm.
Yeah, she hasn't learned it from me, so I don't go teaching it, but I don't necessarily go
But she'll learn about this at school.
She will. I
And
saw a book coming home there
She'll be
yesterday
playing
about
a
it.
tree in the nativity play.
Yeah, I think anything where she doesn't have to be seen, I think would be one. Will she be more comfortable? But she's already shy, which is interesting.
But, I mean, she won't make a choice. I mean, children given the choice to choose religion or not would never choose religion.
Yeah.
It's only something that can be foisted upon you.
Yeah.
You can only be schooled in it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a given with religions. Like
Yeah.
that the trick is to get them when they're young and don't understand anything.
It's like
So
the
they
banks,
don't
isn't it?
question
Get you in, get you your
Yeah,
Henry
yeah.
the Hippo bank savings thingy and get you in early. Like, it is a bit that.
There's an idea for the church.
What, a little crucifix?
Well, maybe a little confessional box that you could save coins in.
That could really, yeah,
could
and
go.
put all your sins in there too. Imagine like be asking an 8-year-old, like that you didn't have confession.
No.
So
no.
we were asked, you have to reveal your sins. So what are your sins? And I remember going into a confessional box one day and I was making a stand because he asked me, well, how long's it been? And my parents were waiting outside, like, because they forced me to go in, and I didn't like the idea of going in. So I went in. They said, "Well, what were your sins?" And I said, "To be honest, I've done nothing wrong." And he still gave me a couple of Our Fathers.
Yeah, for lying.
I had done nothing wrong, but like I genuinely had done nothing wrong.
But
So-
were there not sins of contemplation? I mean, surely by resisting. I didn't mean to call you Shirley, by the way. By resisting the confessional, was that in itself not a sin of intention?
Well, he didn't say that to me, but it could well have been. And that was the thing
And how
was
would he
that
know
you
it?
weren't allowed to think bad thoughts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You weren't
Thought-
allowed to
thought-
covet your neighbour's wife.
Yeah.
And already at a young age, I had
Or
a
your
kind of a
neighbour's
bit.
Vestal Virgin.
Well, I had already attraction to women at a young age, whatever age it was. When finding out about those things, I think it was Debbie, who used to live up the road, and she was like way older than me. And I remember thinking,
Gorgeous.
I didn't know why I liked her, but I liked her.
Yeah, wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Fabulous thing.
I remember thinking, well, I mean, how am I not supposed to? I think this is totally unfair that I can't think about this even, because you cannot covet and say your neighbour's wife. That's ridiculous. Like, if she's really good looking, surely you can have thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember, it's interesting when you describe that first stirring of kind of attraction that you don't understand, and it's wonderfully innocent and kind of aesthetic, really, I suppose. Right?
Yeah.
It's not really sexual. Is it?
It's not.
It
You
is
don't
on some
understand
level,
it. It's pretty amazing.
It's an aesthetic thing, and I remember being at my cousin was about a year older than me, and being at her birthday party and being the only boy there, surrounded by all these beautiful young girls.
Yeah.
I think I was very young. I was probably like 6 or 7 or something.
Yeah.
And I decided it'd be a good idea to wear my Indian headdress.
Right.
You know, just because I had one. This would
Yeah.
impress everybody. And the girls, of course, were attracted to the feathers and were kind of stroking the feathers. And I was quite indignant about this. Get it off.
Yeah.
My headdress.
Stroking me feathers.
Yeah. I'm sort of peacocking, I suppose, in my own.
Yeah,
own
you
way.
absolutely are. Yeah, had your time. Yeah.
But I remember thinking that a couple of the girls were very pretty, and I wouldn't have even maybe used that word. Just being strangely, oddly attracted.
Yeah, it's funny,
the-
isn't it?
to
How it
the-
arises. How suddenly from one day you're going along, and you absolutely hate them, and they're just prissy, and you wouldn't invite them to your party, or you'd hate the idea that any of the lads see you even talking to, and then suddenly the next day you're kind of going along going, what the hell?
But it's odd because and I think it's part of the problem is that you were attracted to the pretty girls before you knew what they were like.
Yeah.
So before you had experienced whether they were pleasant, funny, compassionate, kind, intelligent, fair, any
Intrinsically, we all know what beauty is like.
yeah. Just that it's beauty first.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Very dangerous, which kind of accounts for our obsession with body and appearance and the cosmetic business.
Well, why do you think women have why did they have loads of babies, or some babies or whatever? I mean, because you look at this parcel of beauty and smells amazing, and there's no way this could be hard work. Should all I have to do is push it on a pram all day around, and it's amazing. And then, I mean, then when obviously after that, but that's how it's so. And apparently, I saw some study about scientifically the best looking people have faces closer to the symmetry of babies.
That's right.
That we're drawn to
Hence
that.
big eyes.
Yeah, the big
Very
eyes.
important.
Yeah,
That's why all the Disney characters have huge eyes that are way disproportionate
is that it?
to their bodies. Yeah, because we're programmed to respond to large eyes. Otherwise, babies would die because we wouldn't feed them and care enough about them. And also, we're programmed to respond to that high pitched crying at 2 a.m.
Yeah,
because if we could turn over and go back to sleep, a proportion of us would.
So they have to be. You have to get something back from the no sleep, the countless hours your life totally taken from you. It's because you're looking at them, and every morning you go in the morning and you suddenly go, I might be exhausted, but you just smirked at me or something, and I'm blown away again.
I saw a beautiful child yesterday in a cafe, just the friendliest little girl with her mother, very happy. She was only a few months old. She was just started walking, smiling at everybody, just lit up my day. Beautiful little blonde haired girl, great big smile on her face. I love little kids.
Yeah.
Love children. Couldn't eat a whole one, but quite nice sautéed. I think that the greatest thing that children teach us, the gift they give us, is to teach us to be less selfish.
Well, they batter you into that though. My phone's after dying there, but anyway, I'm hoping that what we have recorded, but we have it here anyway. So they batter you into that though. It's not a pleasant, soft submission. Well, for me, I found that I was slowly but surely. It's just a case of you might want to go and enjoy a glass of wine in the evening time when they're X amount, or you might want to spend your time over the dinner. But the reality is that you've only X amount of time to stuff that food into you before something kicks off. A nappy has to be changed. Something has to be done. And so for me, I got broken slowly but surely in that.
Do you believe, and it's a related topic, that the idea that men never really grow up, that we just remain boyish, but slightly greyer and balder and more stooped?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and that women actually are more mature and
more intelligent.
More responsible.
Yeah.
I don't know about more intelligent.
Well, I would say emotionally intelligent and more including and more mature and more responsible.
Yeah, and more compassionate.
More,
which I think is
we're really great too, though. I mean, we're great crack.
Lifting heavy weights.
We're handy to have around to carry stuff in IKEA.
But as soon as we have robots that in the home that can do that, I don't think
we're replaceable.
I don't think we'd be necessary.
It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Well, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Girls can drink beer now, so they don't need us to do that for them. It's permissible for ladies to drink pints. I was just thinking the other day about seeing friends of mine when I was about 18 or 19, girlfriends, the pubs around Trinity College and that part of town, Kennedy's, for instance, at the back gate of Trinity there, drinking pints of Guinness and drinking a ball of malt with that. And
a ball of malt?
A ball of malt was a nip of whiskey. It's called a ball of malt. Have you never heard that?
No, I haven't.
Pint of stout and a ball of malt.
A chaser?
Yeah.
A chaser. Oh, I know a chaser.
Ball of malt they'd ask for. You need to discover Flann O'Brien and the pint of plain. It's your only man.
Your only man.
Your only man.
We've hit the hour here.
Oh yeah.
And I was going to talk to you about marketing, but I mean that's going to have to be the next time. Another day. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, Frank.
Thank you, buddy. Cheers. It flew, didn't it?
Yeah, it's always interesting talking to you.
Likewise. Should we
talk to you all night?
We chew the cud all day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, if you liked the conversation that I just had and you'd like more, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.